from the very early 2000s, actually, to the maybe later half of 2010s, I mostly see that the rapprochement with Moscow had been driven by a multidimensional foreign policy on Ankara's part mainly. That was looking for closer ties with Moscow as a balancing factor vis-a-vis the West, vis-a-vis the Western world. What I'm trying to say is that in the early 2000s, actually, Turkey was attempting to establish balanced, mostly complementary relations with both West and Russia in line with this multidimensionalism. Constructivist foreign policy, pragmatic foreign policy, those were the main natures of the Turkish foreign policy. However, there has been anti-Westernist sentiment as well later on accompanying this multidimensional foreign policy that brought Turkey and Russia together.
Western orientation or an Eastern orientation, a Eurasianist orientation, I think still these are secondary to this perception of strategic autonomy, which is deeply shaping the Turkish foreign policy strategic elite. So in that sense, I would argue that both Western orientation and Eurasian orientation in the Turkish context is not much about identity, but it is rather a kind of instrumental element of Turkey's foreign orientation. You remember, for instance, when we used to have these discussions about anti-Americanism, you have this great article. It has been quite a long time now, more than a decade, where you argued that this is not an inbuilt, inherent identity related, but rather it is a kind of political expression of a certain political position. So the anti-Americanism in the Turkish political context.
Actually, the way the invasion of Ukraine has been covered in the Turkish media, especially how commentators, former generals, some media personalities have been interpreting what is going on the field, has shown quite a bit of a pro-Russian tilt in interpreting events on the ground. And this actually has confirmed my findings in my report, that I believe Russia has very smartly invested in social media, traditional media personalities. Sputnik Turkey has 1 million followers in Turkey and is now banned in many countries, but continues to influence the Turkish debate. I wouldn't call it only Euro-Asianist, but you see pro-Chinese, pro-Russian tendencies. Of course, the Ayrıcalıklardan group, which is the sort of most well-known Euro-Asianist actor in the domestic setting. Of course, the Vatan Party, Mr. Perinçek and his party. There is it's not a homogeneous group of people. It's actually I classify Turkey's Euro-Asianists as a subgroup of the Ulusalcıs, which is these leftist, patriotic or nationalist larger group that is actually disseminated both in a large segment of Turkish electorate, including the CHP, MHP, and maybe others.